I am 81 years old, and my daughter has been dead for 3 years now. I still haven't figured out what to do with that. Not because I didn't love her. I did. I think that's what makes it so hard to sit with. You can love someone your whole life and still manage to lose them while they're standing right in front of you. Her name was Carol. She had her father's eyes and my stubbornness, and she laughed at things that weren't funny just to make other people feel less awkward. I used to think that was a flaw. Now I think it was one of the kindest things about her. There's something I said to her the last time I saw her in person. Conscious, able to hear me. I'll tell you what it was. But I need you to understand a few things first, because if I just tell you the words without the history behind them, they won't land right. And they need to land right. I've been carrying them for 3 years. When Carol was young, I was the kind of mother who showed up. I want to be honest about that because it's important. I was at the school plays, I packed the lunches, I drove her to the orthodontist 16 times one winter because her jaw wasn't forming right and we couldn't afford to let it go. I was present in all the ways that get counted. What I wasn't good at was the other kind of present. The kind where you put the dish towel down and you actually look at your child when she's talking to you. The kind where you don't let your mind drift to the grocery list or the unpaid bill while she's trying to tell you something real. She would talk, and I would half listen, and I would respond to the part I caught, which was always the surface of what she'd said, not the underneath, and she would go quiet. Not angry, just quiet. The way a person goes quiet when they understand they are not going to get what they actually needed. I didn't recognize that at the time. I thought we were close. I thought doing things for someone was the same as being there for them. I carried that mistake forward for 30 years without once stopping to examine it. She left for college and came back different. Most kids do. But with Carol, the difference had a direction. She became more private. She laughed less around me. When I asked her questions, her answers were correct, but short. Technically responsive. She wasn't lying, she just wasn't opening. I told myself it was a phase. I told myself she was busy, that she was finding herself, that this was what young women did when they grew into their own lives. I told myself that when things slowed down, when she finished school, when she settled, when the grandchildren came, we would find each other again. That is the lie I lived inside for a long time. That closeness was something you could defer, that there would always be a better season for it. That intimacy with your own child was a bill you could pay later, with interest, once the urgent things were handled. The urgent things were never not there. That's what I didn't understand. There is always something urgent. You make time or you don't. And I mostly didn't. And I told myself a story about why that was acceptable. I was working then. I had a position I was proud of. I was good at it, genuinely good, and I won't pretend that didn't matter to me. It mattered enormously. I wanted to have built something. I wanted to be seen as capable and serious and worth something beyond the walls of my own house. Those feelings were real. I'm not going to apologize for them now. But I fed them at the expense of something I didn't know I was spending. Carol got married in her late 20s. I liked her husband. He was steady and quiet, and he adored her in the way you can tell is real because it doesn't perform itself. They had 2 children. I was at both births. I held those babies and felt something enormous move through me. But even in those rooms, even in those moments, there was a kind of glass between me and Carol. I could see her. I could be in the room with her. I just couldn't reach her the way I wanted to, and I never let myself stay with that feeling long enough to understand what it was telling me. I assumed it was normal. I assumed all mothers and daughters had this, some distance, some formality that develops over time. I assumed we would work through it eventually, naturally, the way you assume a lot of things that never actually happen on their own. If you're still with me, I want to stop for just a moment. I want to ask you something, and I'm asking it plainly, not to fill time. When was the last time you had a real conversation with your child? Not logistics, not school or money or plans. A conversation where something true passed between you, where you said something you actually meant and they knew you meant it. I ask because I know how easy it is to be in contact with someone for years without ever really touching them. I did it for decades, and I called it a relationship. If that question is sitting somewhere uncomfortable in you right now, I'd ask you to stay with it. Don't move past it too quickly. Write something in the comments if you're willing. I read them. I sit with them in the evenings, and they keep me company in ways I didn't expect when I started doing this. And if something here is reaching you, I'd be grateful if you stayed. Subscribed, maybe. It helps other people find their way to these conversations. I mean that simply, not as a pitch. But let me keep going, because I'm getting close to the part I've been building toward. Around the time Carol turned 43, something shifted in how she communicated with me. The calls became less frequent. When we did speak, she was careful. Not cold, exactly. Careful. The way someone handles a thing they've already decided is fragile and probably can't be fixed. I thought she was stressed. Work, the children, the ordinary weight of a full life. I projected every reasonable explanation I could find except the true one. The true one came from her sister, 2 years after Carol died, during a conversation I wasn't ready for. She told me things I hadn't known, that Carol, in her late 30s, had tried twice to talk to me about growing up feeling invisible, about reaching and finding me busy or practical or helpful in entirely the wrong direction. She had tried once on the phone and once over dinner at her house, and both times I had not understood what was being handed to me. I don't know if I deflected or minimized or simply couldn't hear it, but I didn't receive it. And after the second time, Carol stopped trying. She didn't leave. She didn't make a scene. She continued being a good daughter in every visible way. She came to holidays. She called on my birthday. She sent photographs of the grandchildren. By every measure that could be witnessed from the outside, we had a relationship. And I never knew that inside that relationship, she had already given up on being known by me. She was 51 when she got sick. Pancreatic. The word alone does something to a room when someone says it. She told me over the phone, calm as if she were reading something aloud, and I remember sitting down on the kitchen floor because my legs decided before I did. I went to her. I stayed on and off through most of the treatment. I cooked, I drove, I slept in the guest room, and I was useful in all the ways I knew how to be useful, which was, I was starting to understand, the only register I had ever really operated in. And then something happened that I did not expect. We started talking. Actually talking, the way I should have been talking to her for 30 years. She was sick and exhausted, and she no longer had the energy to manage me carefully. So she stopped managing. She told me things, sitting in her kitchen at midnight when she couldn't sleep, in a voice that was too tired to be anything but honest, about the ways she had felt growing up, about the specific loneliness of having a mother who was always doing something for you and never quite with you, about how she had learned early to need less from me because needing more hurt too much. I listened. For the first time in her life, I actually listened. And she talked for the first time in years, knowing I was hearing her. I thought we were getting somewhere. I let myself believe that this was the season I had always told myself was coming, that we were finding each other, finally, the way I had always assumed we would. I was grateful. I was so genuinely grateful. And underneath the gratitude, there was something else I couldn't look at directly, which was the understanding of how much time we had wasted and whose fault that was. She died 14 months after the diagnosis. The last 2 weeks, she wasn't conscious in any real way. I sat with her every day. I held her hand. I talked to her, even when I knew she couldn't hear me. And the last time she was awake and present and knew I was in the room, I was standing at the foot of her bed, and she looked at me, and I said, "I'm sorry it took me so long." That's what I said to her. After 80 years of being a person, after 51 years of being her mother, that's what I had. 7 words. And she looked at me for a moment, and then she closed her eyes. And I don't know, I will never know, whether she heard them the way I meant them, or whether it was already too late for them to mean what I needed them to mean. Here is what I want to say slowly, because this is the part that is simply true and cannot be softened. I cannot go back and listen to her the way she needed me to listen. I cannot sit across from her at the kitchen table and let her tell me who she actually was. I cannot call her. I cannot fix the 30 years when she tried to reach me and I was busy being useful. I cannot give her back the energy she spent learning not to need me. I cannot undo the fact that the closest we ever were was in the last year of her life when she was dying, and that even that was largely her gift to me, not mine to her. She is Dawn, and I am 81, and I will not see her again. There is nothing to be done with that. There is no action that addresses it. There is no conversation I can have now that reaches her. The grandchildren are kind to me. They visit. They are busy and full of life, and they look at me the way young people look at someone very old, which is with a kindness that contains, somewhere inside it, the knowledge that you won't be here much longer. I don't blame them for that. I look at myself the same way. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I don't have the standing for that, and I don't think it's what you need from me. But I will tell you what I know, in the way that I know it, which is in my body, at this age, with this particular weight. The people you love are not waiting. They are living right now, at this moment, and the version of them that exists today will not exist in quite the same way tomorrow. The conversation you are putting off is aging. The distance you have decided to close later is, in the meantime, growing. Not because anyone is choosing it, just because time moves in one direction and takes people with it. I thought I had time with Carol. I thought the fact that she was still in my life meant I still had access to her. I didn't understand that access and presence are not the same thing, and that a person can be present in your life for decades while the real relationship quietly dies of neglect. I understand it now. It's a Thursday afternoon, and I'm sitting in the kitchen I've sat in for 40 years. The light is coming through the window the way it always does this time of day. Everything in this house is familiar to me, and none of it talks back. I'm not asking for sympathy. I made the choices I made, and I own them. I just wanted to tell someone the true version, not the one where I did my best and it wasn't enough. The true version where I had more to give and I gave it in the wrong directions, and my daughter knew that, and she died knowing it, and I have to live the rest of my time understanding exactly what that means. I think about her most mornings. I think about that laugh, the one she used to put other people at ease. I think about what it must have cost her to be that generous with other people when her own mother never quite figured out how to show up for her in the way she needed. I don't know how much time I have left. Not a lot, probably. Enough to sit here and say this out loud, which is what I'm doing. If you have someone you've been meaning to reach, if there is a conversation you have been waiting on the right moment for, I would just ask you to notice how long you've been waiting. That's all. Just notice.